Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast, the sort of social awkward outcast, crazy riddles, and all around nerds convene, talk, and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, and I am your host / Time Lone Wannabe, the Brainstorm Pop Culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I am doing good. It's been a good birthday, and yes, today is my birthday, as it happens.
I'm not singing happy birthday because I have a cold, unfortunately.
Yeah, ain't nobody got time for that shit.
I just don't want anyone hearing like this fucked up voice right now to sing happy birthday to you.
I have a birthday, and he gets sick that week. I swear sometimes we like. I swear sometimes we have moments where when one of us has everything going well, then the other one's life is shit, and vice versa.
It's a weird duality, I will agree. It does seem to happen like clockwork.
Very weird. It also makes having a good day rather miserable because I'm like, oh shit, what's gonna happen to Brainstormer now that I'm having a good day? Fuck.
Right.
And no, before you ask, I didn't do anything, so it's not my fault.
See, now I didn't think that until you just said that. So,
well, to be fair, to be fair, you do sometimes overlook the wait, he's been a freaking wizard for 19 years.
No, I don't. I just assume you are not that much of a prick to curse your best friend.
Well, that, but also, just generally, curse work is not viable unless someone genuinely burns down your house or some shit, like some revenge tragedy shit. Then curse work makes sense. But anything lesser than that and curse work just becomes petty bullshit. And I am a petty motherfucker, but I'm not that much of a petty motherfucker.
You sure? You really, really sure?
Yes, because usually, if I'm in a situation where I can afford to be that petty, it's because the person is already a dumbass and is probably going to self-sabotage and destroy themselves before I need to. Although certain members of your family do occasionally stress that rule, because my god, do I want to do terrible things to certain members of your family too.
Yeah.
And you know exactly who I'm talking about.
I do.
I'm not going to be more specific than that.
Yeah, alright. So our first thing was something we didn't do last week. Sorry, my fucking nose feels like it's about to sneeze, but also like it's just fucking stuffy as shit.
Yeah. I hate that feeling. The anticipation burn for a sneeze is worse than the actual sneeze.
At least it's over.
When you're sat there having that I'm about to sneeze feeling, I know I'm about to sneeze for like 10 minutes, and it's like, just fucking sneeze already. This isn't comfortable.
Yeah.
Anyway, on with the show.
Yeah. This fucking Christ. God damn it. Hey, made sick. My brain is all fucked. I mean, it's already fucked, but god damn it. Alright, it's from space.com. Written by Richard Edwards, published July 10th, 2025. Superman's biggest weakness isn't kryptonite, it's that every Man of Steel movie to date has a disappointing ending. I mean, based on title alone, I don't disagree.
I mean, even the best Superman movie, which of course is the original 1978 one, has the stupid rotating around the Earth to reverse time, because fuck that noise. So no, I can't dispute this claim. Actually, this claim appears to be empirically correct, because even the good one has a stupid motherfucking ending. And Superman 2. Doesn't Superman 2 have the memory erase kiss?
I never watched the sequels.
and Superman 3, I don't even remember what the plot of Superman 3 was, and Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, is just the entire movie is just no, repeated over and over again, underlined several dozen times. And the less said about Man of Steel for the 500th time, the better. So yeah, no, this claim is not in dispute at the moment. I will adjust my opinion based on the reasoning they give for it, but I can't fully dispute the claim that every Superman movie to date has a shit ending, unless you count the animated ones, in which case the animated ones are exempt from this rule.
Okay. God damn it, my nose is running. Okay, give me a second. I'll read the subheader. It may be faster than a speeding bullet, but Superman has a long-standing problem with final acts. Again, I'm not going to dispute that. I'm just curious of where this writer is going to go.
Yeah, it's not the claim that worries me. It's what context are you going to give to this claim?
Right.
Because
okay.
Usually this kind of article isn't written just on the basis of a premise alone.
Right. All right. I'll read the first paragraph, and then while you're talking on, I'll disappear for a second. So.
Yep.
Okay. Making you believe a man can fly is the easy part. DC's Man of Steel has been a fixture on cinema screens ever since Richard Donner directed the wonderful Superman the movie. But with its ridiculous time-turning conclusion, the 1978 classic revealed a problem that's been plaguing the last son of Krypton ever since. Superman movies never end well. Okay, I'll be right back.
And again, I can't dispute that because I hate the stupid reversing the rotation of the Earth to reverse time shit. Like, at least The Flash has the MacGuffin of the Speed Force and, like, something related to the theory of relativity. They didn't even bother doing any, like, relativistic calculations for Superman to make that make sense. Like, that has never been a thing Superman can do. He can occasionally go so fast that it relativistically freezes time, but he's never gone so fast that time itself begins to fuck off. That's more of the Flash's shtick.
I've returned. I have a tissue in my nose.
Good in the sense that it will hopefully make you less miserable, bad in the sense that it's required at all.
At least I'm not having a nosebleed. That's worse.
Yeek.
Yeah.
Anyway, continuing.
Actually, I can't remember the last time I had a nosebleed. Oh no, wait, no. I think it was like 3rd grade. I went to a roller rink and I fell on my face because I did not know how to roller skate.
Yeah, but is that a nosebleed, or is that your nose just getting injured and reacting like every other part of the body?
I would count that as a nosebleed because that is literally the last time my nose ever bled.
I only count it as a nosebleed.
Actually, high school, I was picking my nose, and then all of a sudden I just started gushing blood. I literally
that happened. That happens sometimes. That happened to me.
Yeah, I literally went to the nurse's office and like I had to walk there with my face, like my lower face, just covered in blood.
Eek.
Like I went to the bathroom, to wash it off, right?
Right.
People thought I was in a fight. How much blood there was.
I was gonna say, I bet the high school rumor mill loved that shit.
No one really saw it, to be fair. It was like, no one was really out and about at that time. Freshman year. Yeah, freshman year, I remember. Yeah. Yeah. Fuck. That was the last time. So that's been over like 10 years, actually, that I had a nosebleed.
I sometimes get nosebleeds, like if the barometric pressure is really weird for some reason, and then it just bleeds inexplicably for no reason.
I remember another time, like during, it was like a Actually, I might have had like a summer thing where my nose was just like super dry and it just started to bleed. Right?
Mm. Anyway, nose blood aside, back to the article.
Yeah. I think you covered things for the first part there. At least I don't have anything to say there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This. Oh my god. Okay. This is where we're required then, Dalton.
Mm.
This may be down to a fundamental flaw with the character. Superman's lack of weakness is actually his biggest weakness.
No,
Hey, Dalton, may I? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
please.
Superman actually has plenty of weaknesses. Most of the time, they're not physical weaknesses, though. And I think a lot of writers and just the general public or fandom, right, often
Mm.
don't think of that or understand that and just focus on his physical abilities and stuff like that. Like one of Superman's greatest, honestly, his greatest true weaknesses, not physical, right, is his humanity, like his care.
It's his own moral compass getting in the way of being able to insta-shot things.
His empathy, his his humanity, right? Like it's
Yeah,
kindness, all that.
it's his rules. It's the well, actually, no, not even rules, because that's a difference between um Batman and Superman, for example. Batman falls in the 11th Doctor category of good men don't need rules. Today is not the day to find out why I have so many.
Right. Actually,
Superman doesn't actually have hard and fast rules because he just doesn't need them because
hold on.
his morality is very emotional, sentimental, and very like self-directed.
Right.
It just doesn't occur to him to do bad things in the first place.
There was a video I had watched, a post, really, right, to describe the Trinity in terms of the D&D alignments.
Yeah, I saw that one too. It showed up in my feed too. I almost sent it to you, but I didn't.
Yeah, I just randomly watched it, but it's weird how it didn't go into Wonder Woman though. It just went into Batman.
If I were to play Tumblr user advocate here, I think because Wonder Woman being lawful neutral, or what? Which one's left?
She was they were all in the good. They were all in the good, but it was Batman that was lawful good, Superman neutral good, and I believe Wonder Woman was going to be chaotic good, even though they didn't make mention of it. Which I think actually
I don't know where that's coming from, because usually when Diana is doing Wonder Woman things, she's acting as a diplomat for Themyscira, and that strikes me as very lawful good.
Okay. To be fair, I think both of us are not really in the category of talking about Wonder Woman because she is not a character that's been in our pure view as much as the other two.
I mean, she's at least magic adjacent, so I do have some like skin in the game there.
No, I'm not saying you don't. I'm just more saying that because of how basically DC's kind of fucked her over the years.
Well, yeah, this is the problem with the Trinity in general, is people always forget Wonder Woman exists, and it's stupid. Like it took until 2017 to get a Wonder Woman movie, and we've done what, 3 or 4 different continuities of Batman and Superman now.
Yeah. Also, how many animated shows with them? I mean, granted, Batman's got more animated shows, and Superman has gotten 2 primary ones currently.
Yeah. But for example, both Batman and Superman got to be headliners in their own shows for the DC animated universe, and despite Wonder Woman being a major character in Justice League Unlimited, which is good because she should be, and honestly, I think some of my favorite moments from JLU come from her. But that being as it may, it is somewhat glaring that however forefront she was for JLU, she didn't have her own show, and she probably should have, especially because it would have given like more time and more emphasis on like the mythological and magical
They had plans
corner
for
of the DC universe.
They had plans for it, but I don't think it was ever like greenlit or anything like that. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
but like aside from what would have been Wonder Woman's purview, like we got one episode of Batman the Animated Series where Clarion the Witch Boy shows up, and Clarion the Witch Boy shows up, and Jason Blood Etrigan shows up, and then of course in Superman the Animated Series we got Superman Hand of Fate, which is a great episode, but I wish someone would get Oded Freyer to record over the guy who did its lines, because he was a terrible casting choice for Kent Nelson or Dr. Fate. Like, okay. Oded Freyer remains the best and most base version of Dr. Fate ever, but that's neither here nor there.
Alright. Indeed, the godlike skill set makes him so across the board powerful that writers require Brainiac level intellect to imagine enemies capable of defeating him.
Okay, hold on, because I didn't even get to do my rant, because
I'm sorry.
I wanted to give you room to do yours.
Sorry,
but this just emphasizes the thing I was going to say, which is, okay, two things. One, there are actual literal like canonical deities in the DC universe. Stop with this metaphorical god shit. And two, there are dozens upon dozens of powers that Superman does not have. Like, I know he has a large proportion of the powers he has, i.e., he has the powers he does have to a very high degree, but most of the powers he does have are not that powerful by themselves. Like, and this goes back to the whole godlike blah 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 thing. Like, people forget, and by people I mean both the fans and the writers a lot of the time, forget that Superman is first and foremost a man. He is supposed to be like, oh fuck me.
Don't. Okay, yeah, he's best guess. He's probably there. Okay, I will be reading Shibuya. Oh,
sorry, my phone for whatever reason wasn't plugged in, even though I plugged it in. Like, it was doing that thing where it looked like it was plugged in, but it wasn't in all the way, and so my battery fritzed. But back to the rant I was doing. I realize I'm going to be a philosophically pedantic motherfucker, but in case this is your first day, that is not something new for me. But back on point. What I was saying was, people forget that Superman is a man first and foremost. He's a man in the like Platonic sense. Plato had this concept of the world of the forms, kind of like the highest possible degree of any given concept taken to its logical extreme. And Superman is that essentially as a character for like the soul of mankind in this. He is not, and it was never intended to in any way be a god, and you can tell because of the powers he does have as contrasted with the powers he doesn't have. The powers he does have, physical strength, um, uh, various other like aptitudes that are related to physical strength but aren't quite physical strength. Like super breath is basically just an extension of normal ass breathing with, super strength added on and therefore more excessive and so on. But compare most of his abilities, which are mostly just an extension of physical durability or physical strength, how flight even, comes in as anybody who knows Superman knows, beginning as essentially super jumping, which is an extension of physical strength / durability. But compare that to all the powers Superman doesn't have. He doesn't have any like mental or like telepathic or telekinetic abilities or any
sorry.
or any of the kinesises.
Okay, I do want to point out somewhat. Again, that this is more conjecture and like theory or headcanon. Tactile kinesis, possibly. It's
Maybe, but that's splitting hairs. My point is that he doesn't manipulate. He doesn't manipulate like mental or psychic energy. That's something that's very much necessary for a god type figure. He doesn't have the ability to manipulate time or space or other fundamental forces of the universe. He's not a reality bender. He doesn't manipulate like quantum energy or the energy within matter or anything. He doesn't have the capacity to see into the future. Or speaking of, he doesn't have any of the kinesis. He also doesn't have any of the clairs, like clairvoyance, clairtangent, clairaudience, etc. He doesn't have any of the clairs. He doesn't have any of the kinesises. He doesn't have weather manipulation or other like fundamental natural force manipulation. He doesn't have the ability to be in multiple places at once. He's not an energy or consciousness based being. He is very much a physical entity and limited to that capacity. He doesn't, like I say, he's not a reality bender. He can't create stuff ex nihilo. He can't like bend or shape concepts or fundamental like logical constraints of reality, like something like the endless might do. He's not in any way like tied to a fundamental force of nature or anything. Even the Flash, arguably because of the Speed Force, is at least ostensibly more godlike than Superman because he's tied inexorably to being like an epicenter of a fundamental force of the universe. He doesn't have any energy projection or energy manipulation abilities unless you're very, very charitable with the heat vision thing. But even then, that's not really manipulation or even generation of energy. That's just essentially, granted, this is partly my headcanon, in the same way that his super breath is an extension of normal breathing, with the augmentation of his super strength and super durability. The lens of his eyes, I think, are better at reflecting the same energy that our eyes reflect. Like, I this probably doesn't happen quite so often now, but I'm an old fucker, so I remember this. Does anyone remember back in the days before digital photography, and even like during the early days of digital photography, where the light from the camera would catch your eyes wrong and it would make your eyes look red?
Yes.
I think Superman's heat vision is essentially that, given the fact that his retinas, much like all the other physical aspects of him, are super strong and super durable, and therefore can reflect back more of the energy that gets sent to them and so forth. Yeah, but point being, if you notice, all of my listing of the powers Superman doesn't have, all of those abilities, all of those aspects are something that is more close to what a god can do, and indeed more close to what the gods and god adjacent beings of the DC universe themselves can do, and not in any way related to this is why I make the argument that if we're using God in like the nebulous, abstract, like metaphorical way, that label more applies to Dr. Manhattan than it does to Clark, because Dr. Manhattan actually can see into the future and the past and even exist in multiple places at once. Dr. Manhattan can manipulate the fundamental forces of reality either in like a energy construct sense or in a reality bending type sense. He can, or rather, he is a being of pure energy. He can be in multiple places at once. He does have various forms of kinesis and various form of like clair. I always call them the clairs because it's easier to remember than all of the various clair things. But he does have the kinesises and the clairs. Superman doesn't have any of that shit. All of his abilities, barring like the extremely zany one-off abilities that he had in the Silver Age sometimes and never used again, are an extension of physical strength, physical durability, physical like reflexiveness and coordination, which might be where you're getting the tactile kinesis thing from. I've always interpreted that as Superman, as an extension of his physical abilities, is super coordinated or hyper coordinated. That's why I always think it's funny that when he's in Clark Kent mode, he tries deliberately to be clumsy, because imagine being the ultimate like hyper coordinated athlete and trying to pretend to be clumsy. But that's neither here nor there. Point being, Superman is, and I think I've outlined both in like philosophical terms and in universe terms, just the normal capacities or normal abilities or aptitudes of a human being taken to 11, and even then there's some argument that he's missing one because he's not a super genius, at least not in the traditional sense. His cognition can move faster than a normal human when he wants it to, as an extension of his super speed and super coordination, maybe, but he's not a genius in the way Batman is, or Lex Luthor is, or Detective Chimp is, or Gorilla Grodd is, or something like that. Like, he's not going to sit there and wax lyrical about rocket science in the normal, like, Einstein genius sort of way. If he has any like mental capacity, it's because his neuron or mental abilities in the cognition sense, it's because his neurons, much like the every other cell in his body, is super strong and super durable and super flexible and super coordinated, and therefore he can kind of control his brain's neuroplasticity. But all of these have absolutely nothing to do with gods in the DC universe, or even just people's understanding of what gods can do in general. Like, think of characters that are close to gods in various forms of like sci-fi or fantasy media. You've got people like Q from Star Trek who can warp reality. The Celestial Sapiens from Ben 10, same thing. The Anodites from Ben 10 are another good example of something that's at least god adjacent. Same thing with the forget the species name, that the the one hyper advanced cube that turned out to be one of their the Nalgians. They are a lot closer to both gods in universe and gods in just a colloquial sense than Superman is. I've already gone through how I think Dr. Manhattan is more of a god than Superman, etc. So even if you're using God in like the metaphorical sense of like an ascended being who can fundamentally manipulate the fabric of reality and shit, that shit applies way more to somebody like Dr. Manhattan or Franklin Richards than it will ever to Superman, because all Superman has is normal human dialed up to 1,000 or whatever the fuck. Moving on.
All right. Okay, hold on. So you just want me to, okay, with a few, hold on. Indeed, the godlike skill set makes him so across the board powerful. No, I did, but
you read that already, and as we just covered, fuck no, it doesn't, and he doesn't have godlike abilities.
But I read that before your thing. I just want to make sure we have the context after.
Yeah.
Indeed, the godlike skill set makes him so across the board powerful that writers require brainiac level intellect to imagine enemies capable of. Okay, again, more so, I would rather people focus instead on the character weaknesses rather than the physical ones. Like, Superman can be defeated on a lot of good Superman stories always focus on trying to defeat his personal weaknesses or exploit his personal weaknesses.
Well, that's what makes Lex Luthor such a great villain for him. Even though somebody like Darkseid or Brainiac is more of a physical and combat equal to Clark.
I think Brainiac, if he's written right, can be both physical and personal.
Right, but generally speaking, when you think of a character whose whole MO is philosophically disagreeing with and trying to break or convince Superman that his like existential worldview is wrong, that's Lex Luthor. That's why Lex Luthor is such a petty motherfucker, right? Because Lex Luthor, in a lot of ways,
hey, don't.
Is
sorry, I don't. I just think the next thing can also help with your point is.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And with few Superman's friends powerful enough to rescue him from such biblical threats, even Krypto, Deus Ex Machina often proves to be his only salvation, particularly within the 2 to 3 hour running time of a film. Actually, Superman was just under 2 hours, I believe. Like the new one.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in it, and I think it probably would have benefited if it had a little bit more time to let things sit instead of rapid firing all of James Gunn's often contradictory ideas. But point being, not to be a dick here, but there are plenty of characters not only who can save Superman, but that Superman explicitly goes to when he knows he's out of his depth. Martian Manhunter is one. Dr. Fate is another. There are other examples. I'm just not. My brain is refusing to brain for whatever reason right now. But yeah, there are plenty of characters who can and do save Superman, and to whom Superman explicitly will go for advice, for a sounding board, for ideas. And let's not forget that in addition to my point earlier about Superman being a regular guy turned to 11 in the like platonic or neoplatonic sense, he's also a regular guy in terms of his like scope and point of reference and his like day-to-day actions. Like, he is not, and this is why I focus so much on him not being a super genius thing. He is not the hyper intelligent tactician. That is somebody like Batman, or somebody like The Question, or somebody like Mr. Miracle, or the list goes on and on and on. Clark Kent when all is said and done, has, like, in both the, like, abstract moral sense and in the day-to-day how he functions as a being sense, he's just a normal dude. He just happens to be a normal dude who the yellow sun radiation of the Earth turns to 11, or maybe something more like 11 million. But you get what I'm saying. He has both the external abilities of a normal human turned up to an 11, but also the internal, like, personality and ambition of a very humble, very down to earth, very pure, very innocent, very pure of heart, normal dude. That's why he does respect the people he does. Because most of his friends, i.e. his friends in, like, the league, are top 1% of 1% of 1% of what human potential can do, if not more. And so he respects the people who he knows are smarter and better than him at various things, because when all is said and done, not only does Clark have the personality of an average dude, but he only really desires to have the, like, personality and ambition of an average dude. And that sounds slightly dismissive, but I mean it in a complimentary sense. I think that's one of Clark's best qualities, the ability to, despite having the, like, ridiculous proportional strength and things he has, he knows at the end of the day, I'm just a kid from rural Kansas. What the fuck do I know? And that is both a good thing and also something that pisses off somebody like Lex Luthor. Because Lex Luthor, when you get right down to it, is basically kind of an evil Batman, in the sense that both Batman and Lex Luthor are what Ayn Rand would probably refer to, or what Nietzsche would probably refer to as a Superman. And it sticks in Lex Luthor's crawl, like it interferes with his days. It keeps him up at night. That someone as physically potent and hyper coordinated and hyper athletic as Superman doesn't consider himself better than anyone for starters, and more than that, that Superman really is just a sweet, innocent, borderline naive, compassionate to a fault guy who genuinely doesn't have an evil or even aggressive bone in his body for the most part. Like, I've drawn this parallel several times before, but Batman has the rules and restrictions and moral code he does because he has faced darkness and has determined to use darkness against itself. Superman, however, doesn't need formalized morality because his internal compass, his internal mechanism, is so good at being sentimentally and emotionally good that he just doesn't need the rules. And he doesn't need the rules because, unlike Batman, who was, forged in fire or, baptized in darkness, Superman just straight up does not understand the concept of evil. It's like something J.R.R. Tolkien said. When you get right down to capital G, and I'm paraphrasing like a motherfucker because obviously Tolkien was classier than me and wrote at a time where people were more literate. But one of the interesting things about Tolkien's Legendarium is capital G good characters and capital E evil characters cannot understand each other because they are so foreign to each other that they can't empathize with the other side of the coin. Like, the reason why the plan to have Frodo and Sam take the ring to Mordor and throw it in the volcano works is because, according to Sauron's way of thinking, no one would ever let go of power. And so I need to keep my eternally lidless eye on the people with enough personal power that they might actually try to use the ring against me. He does not conceive of the idea of someone who, by their personality, is unaffected by or doesn't have any ambition or will to wield power against evil or good. He doesn't understand the idea of relinquishing power because to Sauron's, too far gone evil mind, the idea of relinquishing power is something that only stupid weaklings do. And Lex Luthor very much is the same way. He cannot understand the fact that the reason why Clark isn't a dictator or isn't a tyrant or isn't any of the things that Lex Luthor probably would be if he had Clark's powers is not because he has any moral, intellectual compunctions against it. It's because evil just doesn't occur to him. The darkness has no hold on him. He is just that pure. One would say too pure for the world, and that is what makes Superman awesome. But that's neither here nor there. Moving on. Sorry, I realized I rambled and went on like 2 non sequiturs.
No, you're good. Honestly, the more you talk, the less I have to. So
yeah, which he does appreciate all the time, but particularly now, I'm assuming because of the cold.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
So, as James Gunn's brand new take on one of pop culture's most famous friendly aliens swoops into theaters around the world, we look back on Sue's previous battles with troublesome and sometimes ridiculous denouements.
I have absolutely no idea what word they're thinking of there. I can't.
Hold on.
I can't see it enough to spell.
And I'm spelling it. DENOUEMENTS.
I don't know if my brain's just not wanting to spell things, but I don't know. I don't think I know that word. Well done, writer of this article. You are such a pretentious fucker that even I'm confused. Maybe Google Dictionary should be applicable here. Or failing that, it will at least remind me of what we're talking about enough that I might actually know the word after all.
Give me a second.
Yep.
Sorry, internet's being weird.
Yep. Figured.
Okay. The final part of it's a noun. Denouement.
Oh, okay. Now I know the word they're talking. Okay.
Yeah, final part of a play, movie, or narrative in which the strands of the plot are drawn together and matters are explained or resolved.
Yeah, it's the fancy French fuck off word for third act, basically, or resolution. Yeah. Now that I've heard it, now I know what it means, but I didn't know it was spelled like that.
Words.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Superman, the movie, 1978. It feels churlish to criticize anything about Richard Donner's perfectly pitched 1978 origin story, but there's no question it comes unstuck in its final act. Okay, that's fair. Again, I'm not going to deny that.
Yeah, and and I will actually slightly disagree with the first half of it too, because I know this is unconscionable heresy for me to say, but Superman the movie does not hold up. Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder's performances hold up like, fine wine, but the movie around them, the plot and story around them, are not good. And Gene Hackman is far too much of a joke character to be a satisfying Lex Luthor in my mind. Granted, I grew up with Clancy Brown and Michael Rosenbaum, so I am used to Luthor actually being a truly scary mastermind motherfucker when he puts his mind to it. I don't really like comedic Lex Luthors very much. And for all of the many faults of the Snyderverse, and the odd casting of Jesse Eisenberg notwithstanding, I think at least writing-wise, Zack Snyder was trying to make Luthor a more serious individual, but it, got teared down by everything else that was wrong with that movie.
I still think Jesse Eisenberg could have been an interesting Lex Luthor if he was given
he really could have been, because he played
Mark
Zuckerberg in The Social Network, and my God, if that ain't like a soft core Lex Luthor origin story or Lex Luthor template to go with, I don't know what would be.
Also, I can't remember the character's name, but from Now You See, the first one, at least I haven't seen the other two.
J. Daniel Atlas, I think, is his name.
Yeah.
Or is it Atlas or Alice? But either way, it's Jay in Now You See Me.
Yeah. I think he had a lot. He really showed the charisma. And
the being the smartest guy in the room thing.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, and this is one of the reasons I don't particularly care for Nicholas Holt's version, Lex Luthor should be always the smartest guy in the room. The only exceptions being when he's up against, Justice League members like The Question, like
Mr. Terrific,
Batman, Mr. Terrific, like the people who have arguably almost metahuman levels of intellect. Those are the only people who should be able to make Lex Luthor look like a dummy. And the biggest flaw of Luthor is not a flaw in his ability to reason. It's a flaw in his philosophical outlook. It's his philosophical blind spot that always does him in. And that's why Superman is the one motherfucker in the universe who can piss him off. Because why is this ridiculously naive child god actually earnest in his desire to just do good by default, when he could be the most, powerful, most tyrannical alpha male in the universe? That's the thing that keeps Lex Luthor up at night. He does not get it. He cannot understand that Superman doesn't do bad or manipulative shit because it simply doesn't occur to him in the first place. Moving on.
Right. Okay. Criminal mastermind Lex Luthor, played by Gene Hackman, plans to nuke the San Andreas Fault, turning his cheaply acquired Californian housing empire into a lucrative beachfront property in the process. To be fair, this would have been before the time they kind of turned him into the billionaire we know.
It's also very much both adapting and taking place during the last days of Silver Age goofiness. But that being said, being as we have hindsight, I at least can admit that Silver Age goofiness, much like Adam West Batman, doesn't hold up well. No shame to Christopher Reeve or Adam West or Margot Kidder or Eartha Kitt or anyone who contributed to either of those things being the success they were. But all other things being equal, there's a reason why we moved away from the Silver Age goofiness and actually tried to start treating those high concept sci-fi and esoteric concepts with a little bit more gravity in the 80s and 90s. Moving on.
Okay. After escaping a rather mediocre kryptonite trap, Superman Christopher Reeve arrives on the West Coast to face what's arguably his biggest weakness, the fact he cares about people. Now that is his biggest weakness. Like, it's not arguable, I think.
Well, if you define that as a weakness, then yes, it is
Well, no,
definitely.
obviously,
Yeah.
I think it's his greatest strength. I think obviously to villains it's his weakness because
Yeah, it's what makes Lex Luthor not immediately get stepped on like a bug. Which I've often made this point, but I'm gonna make it again because it deserves to be made again. The thing that always makes me laugh about Lex Luthor when he gets in his full like philosophical diatribe shit with Superman is like he wants Superman to see the people around him as insects because in Lex Luthor's mind, and indeed in the like Ayn Randian ethos that birthed people like Lex Luthor, in Lex Luthor's mind, those who are better should look down upon the people they are better than, or at the very least, be like paternalistic at most with them. But Lex, the second you convince Clark that it is morally right for him, and indeed not just acceptable, but a virtue to treat people weaker than him like insects. Which insect do you think he's gonna step on first there, Lex? Probably the one that's been bitching about him and being a nuisance to him for the last 70 years, both of in universe history and out of universe history. Fuck, that's the thing. It's kind of like this. I have a similar thing with this plot point as I do with why doesn't Magneto just outbreed humans if he wants to, or convince other mutants to outbreed humans if he wants to? Because the second he wins, Lex Luthor loses. The second he successfully convinces Lex Luthor that weaker beings are supposed to be treated like insects by those with more power than them because more power makes you more morally good, is the very second Superman's going to go, well, all right, well, I'm going to start with you because you are a very, very annoying insect and you have been for years. Yeah, moving on.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. So by the time he's repaired the fault, rescued a busload of kids on the Golden Gate Bridge, Insane Valley will collapse down. He arrives too late to save Lois Lane, Margot Kidder, killed when her car is buried in a landslide. His solution: defy his late dad's strict non-interference policy by flying around the world fast enough to reverse the Earth's spin and rewind time to a point where Lois is still alive. It's still a massive cheat code that you wonder why Supes doesn't use this time travel trick in every single movie.
Well, aside from the fact that it doesn't mechanically make any sense. Like, with the Flash, it kind of makes sense because of the weird, like, theory of relativity type stuff. The idea of speed as it relates to time working. But that's not what he's doing here. He is specifically reversing the rotation of the Earth on the auspices that reversing the rotation of the Earth somehow reverses time. And that's not how that works. Which is one of the reasons why I call bullshit whenever that ending comes up, because it's like he's not doing what the Flash does and just moving faster than the like relativity threshold of time. He's trying to reverse the rotation of the Earth, assuming that that's going to reverse time itself, and not even the most bumfuck creationist thinks that way. Moving on.
All right. It's okay. Superman 2, 1980. In fact, said cheat code would have been rehashed in Donner's original version of Superman 2 had he not been replaced by Richard Lister. The Donner cut was eventually released in 2006. Okay, and unsatisfactory as this cinematic deja vu would have been, it would have made more sense than what ended up in the theatrical release, most of which had been reshot by Lester.
I don't remember the ending of Superman 2, so I will need a refresher on what happened in Superman 2, though.
All right. In this hold on. Okay. Sorry, I was just taking a drink of water. My fucking throat is dry as shit.
Mm-hmm.
In this entertaining sequel, Lois learns Clark's identity, prompting him to renounce his Kryptonian superpowers, a process that, as his late mom, Susanna York, repeatedly tells him is irreversible. His faithful choice. Sorry.
Which I'm sure it's justified in the movie, but why does he have to renounce his Kryptonian powers for Lois? Aside from maybe the thing I frequently or occasionally bring up with the whole, he's gonna have to be very careful when he's getting busy making babies with her, because otherwise his cum shot will blow through her like a 44 Magnum. I could feel your disappointment radiating through the screen.
His fateful choice may have had minimal repercussions had it not coincided with the arrival of General Zod, Terrence Stamp, Ursa, Sarah Douglas, and Non, Jack O'Halloran. The trio of Kryptonian villains freshly escaped from the Phantom Zone after an altercation in a diner makes him bleed his own blood. Inadequately clothed and very human Clark somehow trudges through the Arctic waste to reach his fortress of solitude.
Yeah, it's possible that the movie explains it better, but I haven't watched Superman 2 in years, so I can't. In fact, I am almost sure there's probably a part of the plot that this guy is missing, but I haven't watched any of the Christopher Reeve movies in a very, very long time. Moving on.
All right. The film never explains mechanics. We think it has something to do with the green crystal, but the next time the son of Jor-El appears on screen, he's back in Metropolis. Those gone forever powers miraculously restored, with the Zod squad successfully dispatched. Clark used the power of a kiss to make Lois forget about the events of the last few days. Versus time is almost plausible in comparison, and definitely less sinister.
Yeah, also the memory erase kiss thing is so bad. Like, I hate this trope of hero reveals their identity and some MacGuffin allows them to take it back. I really, really despise, like, even in stuff I genuinely like the Reality Gauntlet movie of Danny Phantom. I really like that movie. Surprise, freaking surprise, because I'm a sucker for weird esoteric magic shit. But I hate the trope of superhero reveals their identity and gets to unreveal it somehow. I hate that trope so much. Because here's the thing. Like, I get wanting to keep your identity out of the public eye for reasons, because, you're worried about your loved ones, etc. But why refuse to tell your loved ones themselves who you are? Like, why does Clark not just straight up come out with it? Like, I can kind of understand the whole, well, I don't know if she'd be in love with me or in love with the powers. But especially after characters have had a long ass bonding experience, and for a fact they do care about you as a person, I don't see why superheroes keep their identity from their loved ones. Again, public eye is different because public eye, has implications. But why would you keep it away from the people you love? Aside from the occasionally the I don't know if they'd love me or the powers thing. But in most cases, if a superhero is thinking of revealing their identity, it's because they've already gotten confirmation that no, they love me regardless of the powers. So why don't they tell their loved ones about it? Other than because the plot says so, because we have to do the secret identity trope. It really annoys me. Moving on. Unless you have anything to add there.
No.
Okay.
Again, I haven't seen these movies, so I don't got really much stake in them.
Superman 2 is actually good, and I really, really like Zod as a villain. Superman 3 and 4 are probably best left in the dustbin of history along with Supergirl. Moving on.
All right. Superman 3. Oh, hold on. Interestingly, Spider-Man 2 features a similar plotline about Peter Parker temporarily losing his powers, and the resolution is just as disappointing. Turns out he just needed to rediscover his wall. No, okay, see, that is complete
they explained this. It was basically him psyching it. Yeah, it was him psyching himself out, essentially. And they actually made it work within the context of, like, a psychological, like, self-doubt thing. So, yeah, I understand that being somewhat underwhelming, and I don't particularly like movies where heroes lose their powers just at all. In the same way as similar to what Brainstormer said of I wish they would find ways of villains contradicting Superman that didn't just involve kryptonite and or being able to somehow punch at his same weight class. Like, you shouldn't have to literally take a character's powers away in order to make an interesting story about them. This is a hard rule for me. If you're writing the powers and not the person using them, you are doing it wrong, you morons. Especially because in a lot of cases with a lot of characters, the powers they have are in many senses an extension of who they are as a person. So taking away their powers is pretty much the narrative equivalent of lobotomizing a motherfucker, and I don't like the idea of lobotomizing a motherfucker. Moving on.
All right. Superman 3, 1983. The film where the original Super franchise first jumped the shark is as much a vehicle for comedy. Legend Richard Pryor as Man in Tights. Christopher Reeve. Working for mediocre Luthor facsimile Ross Webster, Robert Vaughn. Pryor's computer genius, Gus Gorman, fabricates an artificial kryptonite, which, like the red variant in comics, turns Superman bad. Although the metaphorical battle for Superman's soul, played out in a scrapyard between Clark and an evil, stubbly Superman, is one of the most iconic sequences in the saga. Man of Steel's final clash with a sentient supercomputer is one to file under total bust.
At risk of being a pedantic motherfucker yet again, red kryptonite doesn't make him evil, it makes him aggressive. It gives him basically the Kryptonian equivalent of roid rage.
Alright. The briefly teased scrap with freaky robo-woman forged from Webster's sister, Annie Ross, never gets started, while Superman's victory is dependent on the unlikely stupidity of a machine smart enough to improvise its own kryptonite ray in seconds. Yes, even a child would have spotted that Superman is holding something behind his back. Alas, this jar of concentrated beltric acid causes The device's rapid and very permanent shutdown. Okay.
Yeah, Superman 3 is a bit of a clusterfuck. I'm not sure the reasons you think it is are the reasons it doesn't work, but it does not work. Anyway, moving on.
Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, 1987.
Again, I've made my opinions on this very clear. The whole thing is basically just a giant ball of no. Because someone decided they wanted to get political with Superman, and so they made an anti-nuke movie where Superman was their mouthpiece. And as per usual, when the writers force a character to do a thing rather than allowing it to arise organically from the character, it goes over like a lead brick. Moving on.
Identifying problems with Superman 4 is as easy as shooting fish in a barrel. Okay, so I'm sorry, little side tangent there. I've never understood the phrase "shooting fish in a barrel." Like, why would you do that?
Because the water amplifies the shock wave and winds up killing them. So you only have to shoot one bullet in order to shoot an entire barrel's worth of fish. That's the basis of the saying.
But again, I still don't. Why shoot a barrel full of fish? Like, that's
there isn't really a practical reason. It's just supposed to symbolize, like, it's the purpose of the phrase is to point at something that is like very childishly easy, and shooting fish in a barrel full of water and fish is easy because the water carries the shockwave of the bullet and winds up killing all the fish in one go. Thus, really, really no-brainer easy. I'm not sure why anyone shot fish in a barrel to begin with. I'm sure it's one of those things that probably happened during the Old West, and someone like was drunk and dared their friend to like shoot or tried to like. I can see that being something that like two cowboys were discussing in a saloon, and like one guy was probably bragging about how much of a great marksman he is, and the other guy was probably like, I bet you can't kill an entire barrel full of fish in one go. Other cowboy shoots one bullet, all the fish are dead. Lol. I'm sure it's probably something like that. But yeah, I don't know why people were going around shooting fish in barrels other than the aforesaid drunk bet scenario, which I'm betting is probably closer to the truth.
right. Okay. Everything about this low-budget franchise extension is a mess, from the low-rise English city of Milton Keynes masquerading as Metropolis to its on-the-nose moralizing about world peace. Solar-powered bad guy Nuclear Man, Mark Pillow, will not be troubling any list of cinema's greatest villains, while that creepy amnesia kiss also gets another run out, this time to help Clark steal a quick heart-to-heart with Lois.
Again, I hate this trope in general, but why do they keep revealing themselves and then taking it back? I hate that trope in general. If you're gonna it's kind of like it's a weird thing to make this parallel, but it's like doing a marriage proposal. You can't take back a marriage proposal once you've done it. Once you decide to pop the secret identity condom, so to speak, it should stay popped, and then we should have to deal with the actual implications of the people the character trusts, at least knowing about the thing. Like this may be an artifact of when I grew up, but so many really good superhero shows, Danny Phantom is the one that comes to mind most readily, would have been better off if the reveal halfway through the show to his parents and or his sister, which I realized they kept Jazz knowing, but um but the reveal to Danny's parents should have changed the dynamic of the show, so we as the audience could have actually seen how Danny copes with his parents now knowing about his powers. Instead, we get the dramatically convenient power reveal, and then we get the Mulligan, I'm taking it back. No, fuck that noise. Actually show the character dealing with the repercussions of that. Because otherwise what happened, and what always happened in the 90s and early 2000s when I was growing up, was they would reveal the character's powers permanently at the very last moment of the very last season, and we never actually got to see the character have to deal with the repercussions of that. It's the lamest, most bullshit thing, and yet almost every superhero show that had a secret identity mechanic wound up doing it at least once, and I hate it. Moving on.
Right. Okay. With all that going on, the ending isn't actually the movie's biggest problem. Even so, Clark's recovery from Nuclear Man's poisonous scratch defies both logic and explanation. Take another bow magic crystal, as does his decision to dump Nuclear Man in a lunar crater that'll be exposed to the full restorative glare of the sun within moments. He saves the day by pushing the whole moon, yes, really, to instigate a solar eclipse, permanently powering down his adversary and presumably rendering every tide table on the planet obsolete.
Well, yeah, but that's a whole nother clusterfuck. The issue I have with the Nuclear Man having a poisonous scratch thing is you guys seem to forget that Clark also has like solar based powers, and that nuclear energy should, if anything, supercharge him, not weaken him. Just pointing that out. Like, the scratch of Nuclear Man should have been like, Popeye taking spinach, for God's sake. Because given that nuclear energy is essentially roughly the same energy as the sun, and the yellow sun of the earth is what gives Superman, his body's unique ability to metabolize the yellow sun radiation of the earth is what gives him his powers. So trying to nuke Superman into weakness should backfire like a motherfucker. Moving on.
All right, Superman Returns, 2006. I'll be honest, I don't really remember watching this that much.
I remember watching it twice. I didn't particularly care for it, although Brandon Routh was good. I think it would have worked better for everyone if they had just rebooted the continuity instead of trying to make it a continuation of Christopher Reeves. I think that if Brandon Routh got to do what David Cornsweet and Henry Cavill got to do, or not Henry Cavill, because Henry didn't get to do half the shit he wanted to do with Superman, but if Brandon Routh had gotten the same opportunity that David Cornsweet is now getting to actually start a new Superman continuity from the ground up, he could have easily been Superman for more than a decade. You would have had to have thought about this ahead of time. Or better yet, and I know this is probably implausible given that TV and movies weren't nearly as closely tied together as they are now, but I really want to know what would have happened if they had started instead of starting a new Superman continuity, let there be a new Superman continuity with Tom Welling as Superman. That would have been interesting, because we would have had the 11 seasons of Smallville as a prequel to his version of not only Superman's mythos, but the wider DC universe in general. that could, like, DC could have had a MCU style expanded universe from 2006 on, or, well, obviously they'd have to wait until Smallville ended to do it, but like they could have had one from 2011 onwards and beaten Marvel to the punch full stop if they had just given um Tom Welling his day in the sun, both literally and metaphorically. Give me a second. I've got to go discipline the dog because he won't fucking stay out of my room, even though the cat box is not even in here anymore.
All right.
Dang it. Okay, I'm back. Moving on.
All right. Moving on, or anything else?
No, go ahead.
Okay. The franchise has been dormant for 2 decades when the sequel pretended, perhaps wisely, that the events of the third and fourth installments never happened. We quickly learned that Clark, Brandon Routh, and Lois's Kate Bosworth steamy night in the Fortress of Solitude resulted in the birth of a son, Jason, Tristan Lake LeBeau, and that the kid's a superpowered chip off the old block. But despite an all-new cast and creative team, Indians are still Superman's Achilles heel. This time out, Lex Luthor, Kevin Spacey, used Kryptonian technology to build a vast new island off America's eastern seaboard in order to keep Superman's nose out of his business. He's impregnated the whole thing with kryptonite. It therefore makes sense that Luthor's hired goons are able to beat the Man of Steel to a pulp and throw him into the ocean. It makes rather less sense, however, when Superman makes enough of a recovery to use his laser vision to cut the new land mass from Earth's crust. He then flies it into outer space, even though it's in close proximity to the same kryptonite that was killing him a few minutes earlier.
Yeah, and again, I just went over how I think it would have benefited everyone if they didn't try to make it canon to the Christopher Reeve version, but had actually given Brandon Routh a fair shake as his own Superman.
No, it's not nothing. My
Okay.
phone. I just got a notification from YouTube on a live stream of a channel I'm subscribed to. So,
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
okay. Sorry. Fuck. I feel like a sneeze is coming. Every time. Okay, there it is.
Bless you.
Thank you. Logic only makes a cameo when the effort gets too much for Superman and he plummets to Earth like a stone in a red cape.
Again, I don't disagree that the ending is bad here. It does actually seem to be kind of consistent, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Okay. Man of Steel, 2013. Of all the what's the word again?
Denoma.
Dinomots. It's plural, so
Yeah, Denoma. would be
and
the word.
applause.
Yeah.
On this list, Man of Steel is the one that makes the most dramatic sense. It's also, by some distance, the most controversial of the lot.
You want to comment on the it makes the most sense out of the bunch here? Because the ranting impulse is strong with this one.
It does not make. No, okay.
It makes sense with the
hold on.
movie. Okay, go ahead.
Well, yes, I was going to say that. Yes, it does make sense for how the movie is structured and written. I disagree with it on a fundamental level of the character. Granted, Superman is not above killing. He will do it as an absolute last resort.
But there was absolutely no reason why he had to kill Zod in that instance.
I have seen Max Landis have a discussion about this, and it does sort of make sense, but I still think it could have been handled in 10 different ways. Honestly, I think it could have ended with Zod getting trapped in the Phantom Zone again with the Black Zero and everyone else.
You know what could have worked better, assuming you wanted Clark to have a, tragic I accidentally killed a dude thing? What if instead of him breaking Zod's neck because Zod is heat visioning some people, he puts his hand in front of Zod's eyes like everyone thought he should, but instead of having it just be absorbed, what if it backfires on Zod and winds up killing him, or the heat vision winds up bouncing back into Zod's brain and winds up like lobotomizing him essentially? That would have been a dramatically satisfying way to have Superman accidentally, and I stress the word accidentally, kill someone, so he has the fucking tragic motive if you absolutely decided that's the thing he needs to have. But it's also not him being stupid or him deliberately choosing to kill someone. It's him killing someone by accident and then having to deal with the repercussions of that. That could have actually been a way that Superman could have killed somebody that would not have butchered the character and would have actually made sense given the power sets involved, and could have set up an interesting arc because the whole premise of Man of Steel was he was a new superhero, like he just now was starting being Superman, so it could have set him on an arc where he goes from being an inexperienced Superman who makes a mistake that ends up haunting him to a more experienced Superman who thinks more in terms of long-term implications. And it wouldn't have butchered the character and been the single most evil and stupid thing they could have possibly ended the movie on. Moving on. You still there?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm just trying to conserve, like, talking.
Yeah.
The aspirations of Snyder's General Zod, Michael Shannon, go way beyond persuading the son of Jor-El, Henry Cavill, to kneel before him. Instead, this Kryptonian zealot wants to use his world engines to terraform Earth into the reincarnation of his extinct homeworld. And it's safe to say he doesn't care about the implications for the human race. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Neither, it seems, does Superman, whose destructive aerial battle with Zod flattens numerous city blocks, causing the deaths of many Metropolis citizens. Okay.
Which
I'm not defending it, per se, but this is Superman just starting out, so he's a lot less careful.
Yeah, I think it would have been better in my version that I just pitched, because if you want to make a theme of, like, if you want to make a key feature of Superman's arc going from a new character or new hero to a more experienced one, having stuff like that would at least thematically make sense. I still wish Clark had had the foresight to, force Zod to fly away from people, because there's no reason they couldn't have done this flight in the Arctic, where no one is, in danger, or almost no one is in danger of getting fucked with as a result of their bullshit. It also would have set up or would have called back to the Fortress of Solitude better, if they had done the final fight scene in the Arctic instead of in the middle of freaking Metropolis, and especially in the or the DCEU, because apparently, I think this is kind of dumb, but this is a thing that has happened in the comics before as well. Apparently, Metropolis and Gotham are just right across the river from each other, which leads me to the question of why isn't Metropolis a hellhole if the biggest crime of or hive of scum and villainy in the Western world is like a river's length away from Metropolis. Why is Metropolis an idyllic, like 1904 World's Fair, Metropolis, and Gotham is the open air insane asylum that Gotham is? Moving on.
All right. This is one of the motivations for Bruce Wayne's beef with his superpowered rival in Batman v Superman follow-up. Okay. When a defeated Zod threatens to kill innocent civilians with his laser eyes, Supes decides that snapping his rival's neck is the only way to save the day. It's hard to think how else he could have resolved the situation. Don already covered that.
There's and that's not even the only solution. It could, there are so many.
Sentence not done yet.
Yeah.
But many DC Comics purists were furious when their hero violated his secret "Thou shalt not kill" Prime Directive. Again, Superman doesn't have that like Batman does. It's just like he doesn't want, it's just absolute last.
He doesn't want to hurt people, including his villains, because this is a thing that I really wish they had focused more on in the James Gunn version. Superman doesn't like having enemies. He wants his enemies to go good. I've made this point in this parallel many times over, but it's telling that both his best friend that he does hero work with, obviously, Jimmy and people like that also count, but his best friend that he does hero work with is Batman, who is very much his opposite and kind of a hero in the Ayn Randian sense. But his worst enemy is also his exact opposite and kind of a hero in the Ayn Randian sense. So it's telling that his best friend and his worst enemy have more in common with each other than they do with him. But that leads me to the implication, and I genuinely think this is true, both in terms of Clark's character and it just makes sense internally. If Lex Luthor made an honest effort to go good, he could get in the Luthor power suit, and he, Bruce, and Clark could basically become a slightly different version. I don't want to say a slightly different version of the Trinity, but he could add a fourth corner to the, in this case, the square of DC characters. Because I don't think Clark would. The only reason Clark wouldn't trust Luthor is because Luthor is a scheming schemer, and he worries about Luthor hurting people with his schemes. But
I think we're gonna. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to, because we're only halfway through with this, and we've been at this for 2 hours, or close to.
Fuck me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll stop it there for this one, and we'll finish it next week.
Yep.
We get the next one ready.
Yep. Hi, DT.
Oh, hey man, I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well too, man.
And I'm doing pretty well because today's my birthday. Brainstormer unfortunately has a cold, and I feel bad because the universe occasionally has this weird dyad thing with us where one of us is having a good day, therefore the other person's day has to be shitty.
Yeah, I'm a little sick. It's not too bad. Like, I could tell that it's definitely not COVID, because with COVID, I am fucking out of it. Like I would not like we would have had to cancel the podcast. Like I would have been so out of it. But with like I know this is a common cold because with colds, I usually get a lot of energy for some fucking reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I still ache and feel shitty, but I do stuff. It's weird. It's a weird thing with me. I don't know what the fuck is up with that. Anyway, okay, you know what, Don? Okay, how about we save like the Superman stuff for like both articles for next week?
Next week?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Because the trailers will be a lot easier to get through, I think. I don't like I said earlier, I don't want you to be miserable for any longer than you have to be here.
Don, I'm always miserable. You forget how my life is?
Well, yes, I am aware of that, but above your normal threshold of miserable, and by miserable in this case I meant physical pain, not Doofenshmirtz backstory syndrome, which you tend to have.
Okay, so just because there's no image on the actual article, which there is a link to the article itself, I just grabbed an image from Reddit. This is like the still they showed for Avatar 7 Havens, which is the avatar that comes after Legend of Korra. So I will be reading the article from Variety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Written by Jordan Moreau and published July 24th, 2025.
So yesterday.
Yeah. To be fair, that's when I found it. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nickelodeon has released the first look at the upcoming animated series Avatar 7 Havens, the sequel series to the popular shows Avatar: Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra.
I think that more applies to the first one there and not to the second one, because even people who like Korra call it a clusterfuck most of the time. And those of us who don't like Korra will and have gone on 3-hour tirades about how shit Legend of Korra is. But for the sake of Brainstormer's discomfort, I will refrain.
Yeah, to be fair, we've covered it many times. To be fair, the thing with Korra, just so people don't accuse us of just hating it for the bunch of reasons we're often associated with hating something that follows in the line of like
because her misogyny, etc.
Well, one, Don's gay. Well, actually, I don't think that helps his case.
Well, maybe not, considering that gay people, by definition, like men more than they do women. But point being, the fact that Korra is a woman has nothing to do with what makes her an insufferable bitch. The fact that she's an insufferable bitch is what makes her an insufferable bitch.
Well, also, okay. That's not what I was going to bring up.
This is the other thing about Korra. It's not just that she is an insufferably arrogant twat. It's that she is framed as being in the right more often than not for being an insufferably arrogant twat. That's the biggest problem. Because if you made a avatar that had character growth to go through, that could work. But in order for that character growth to make sense, the character has to be shown to be in the wrong when they're doing arrogant, stupid shit. And Korra, at least season 1, has a bad habit of mentor figure yells at Korra, and mentor figure is proven wrong, instead of Korra being proven wrong and learning the lesson that the mentor is trying to teach her. This is one of the things that we were very careful to fix in our personal rewrite of Legend of Korra, which is a thing.
Hold on. Sorry. The thing I was going to say earlier, before you, just as a clarification again, to be fair, I don't hate Legend of Korra. I think the issue I have with it is it actually has a lot of good ideas.
It just doesn't do anything with them and frequently contradicts the good ideas it does have.
Yeah. again, it always runs into, which I guess is kind of my catchphrase at this point, or my own personal saying. There are no bad ideas, only poor execution.
Yeah, when we did our personal fanfic rewrite of Legend of Korra, we tried our damnedest to at least start from a similar position as the plot of the actual show, and even to some degree the character arc themselves as well. The other major red flag of Legend of Korra is it goes out of its way to do the opposite of the world building that was established in the previous Avatar, and that does act like that actually more than Korra being an insufferable bitch. The fact that Legend of Korra goes out of its way to do everything the opposite of the way that Avatar 1 did it, or Avatar or Last Airbender did it. The fact that Legend of Korra goes out of its way to do the exact opposite of what works so well for Last Airbender triples it more even than Korra being an insufferable twat. Because even her being an insufferable twat could work if it worked within the context of the philosophical and metaphysical and spiritual underpinnings that were such a crucial and defining feature of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But it goes out of its way to do everything the opposite, pretty much based on the interviews I've seen, because the writers wanted to challenge themselves to see if they could get the same results with the exact opposite story. And I'm sorry, but sometimes when you do the opposite of something that is a world-changing, epic story, you wind up getting the exact opposite of a world-changing, epic story. You can, in some kind of theory, do a let's do the opposite of what we did with Aang with Korra, and in fact, Brainstormer and I keep that going, but we also pay attention to things like previously established world building, like, for example, and yes, I'm going on this rant again, if Korra's gonna act like the archetypical archetype of an earthbender, just make her a fucking earthbender. Especially given that she's, like, this is the, okay, I will once again make my case for making Korra an earthbender. She, like, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, one of the most defining, like, spiritual diatribes we got in that show was in the episode where Uncle Iroh was trying to teach Zuko to take knowledge and understanding from all four nations and use that to inform his firebending. And in that episode, we got a clear as day description of how the nature and personality of the person using the bending style informs the kind of bending style that they have on a spiritual and personality-based level. And we also got, in one of the better moments of Avatar original flavors world building, the idea that the Avatar tends to struggle with the opposite element to the one they are currently embodying. So Aang, being an airbender, struggled with Earth. But instead of doing the sensible thing, which would have also helped the time scale of the technology thing, which that doesn't do anyone any favors either. If you made Korra the earthbending avatar that came 2 generations after Aang, then you can have her be a brash, stubborn ballbuster who frequently bashes her head against the metaphorical wall rather than finding ways around them. Because that's an earthbender trait, and that kind of earthbender stubbornness is a unique weakness of of an earthbender's psychology, and it also would have made sense of the fact that Korra struggles with air, despite canonically in the canon version being a waterbender, and despite the fact that waterbenders are, again, to reference that episode, where Iroh explains the spiritual and personality-based relationship between bending and the person bending it. Waterbenders are all about empathy, about creativity, about change, about going with the flow. that is pretty much the opposite of what Korra is. She is a stubborn, I'm not going to move, you move, ballbuster chick. Which, if you're gonna do that, and you're also gonna make her struggle with airbending in particular, why in the fuck isn't she an earthbender? And having 2 avatar cycles go by on rather than one allows for the technological jump forward from like medieval Japan technology level or medieval China technology level all the way to like early 20th century technology level. Would have made more sense if you had given things a little bit more time to happen a little bit more organically. Moving on.
Okay. Oh, and Ben Turtle said he also saw the D&D alignment thing. He's catching up, right?
Yeah.
He says, I say that Wonder Woman makes sense as chaotic good, at least in some depictions I've seen. She'll just show up like a fish out of water and just roll with it sometimes, especially when she thinks something is dumb or morally wrong.
Most of the good Wonder Woman content I've seen is when she's acting as a diplomat for Themyscira. That's why I stick her more in the lawful good category.
I still disagree, but anyway, let me continue. The arc was revealed at San Diego Comic-Con on Thursday, where Avatar celebrated its 20th anniversary. Holy shit!
Yeah, that one hit me like a motherfucker. Like, obviously, I'm thinking about my age quite a lot today because it is my birthday and I just turned 30. But yes, I guess technically, considering that Avatar came out when I was between the ages of 10 and 12, that does make sense. But holy fucking shit, actually seeing it spelled out hits like a bar fight haymaker, god damn it. What, no teasing me for being old again, Brainstormer?
No, you know it. You know it. I don't feel like I need to kick a dead horse.
The horse isn't dead yet. The horse may be crippled and beaten, but the horse is not dead yet, god damn it.
I bet just me.
Yeah, I know you meant it in the phrasing, but given what we were talking about, you gotta give me some props for that one. That one was funny.
I'm sure you think it's funny. Anyway, Seven Havens follows 2 earthbending twins. When one discovers she's the Avatar, the latest person who can wield all 4 elements: air, water, earth, and fire. The new series is set in a world shattered by a devastating cataclysm. A young earthbender discovers she's the new Avatar after Korra, but in this dangerous era, the title marks her as humanity's destroyer, not its savior. Hunted by both human and spirit enemies, she and her long-lost twin must uncover their mysterious origins and save the 7 Havens before civilization's last strongholds collapse.
Okay, I'm kind of creeped out by this because when Brainstormer and I were pitching the hypothetical, I often just refer to him as the peacetime avatar because that was a concept we played with when we did our fan fiction. When we were pitching our hypothetical missing waterbender avatar, because we decided to make Korra a earthbender because that makes logical sense given the world building and the spiritual context and stuff. We had them have a really interesting and conflicted relationship with their sibling as well. So, Derp, I guess, or Jinx, or somehow. Did you write any of our Legend of Zarek ideas online anywhere?
No, I have it in a notebook.
Okay, because I was like, are they spying on us? Because that's a very odd coincidence. Also, I don't want to sound like I'm bitching, but 2 female avatars in a row does seem kind. I'm not saying it is necessarily feministy, but it does kind of give me girl boss vibes. Granted, we cover this kind of shit a lot, so it might be me being a little bit too punch drunk, but it is a little bit weird to have two female avatars in a row. Especially because, given what we have set up in the canon now, the next avatar frequently takes on aspects of their previous love interest, which I guess, given Korra and Asami, I guess that can work. It's weird and quasi social justice-y, maybe, at least in theory. I'm not judging it yet, but I'm just maybe it's me being a little bit too punch drunk, but it does seem weird to have two female avatars in a row.
Give me one sec. Okay, sorry, I'm fucking. God damn it. Okay. Sorry, my fucking nose is like fucking. What the fuck?
Yep. Brainstormer's body is committing a mutiny.
The first image shows the young avatar and her half cat, half lemur looking pet tagging along behind her.
Wait, we're doing lemurs again?
Half lemur, half cat.
Right, but that still seems the tiniest bit unoriginal.
Right. Another friend walks beside her in a rocky desert land with a city in the far distance and mysterious lights brighten the sky, which would have been the spirit world interacting with the world, I believe.
Oh, right, because last season of Legend of Korra broke the barrier between the spirit world and the mundane world. I forgot that was a thing for a second.
Avatar's 20th anniversary panel featured original voice actor stars Janet Varney, Korra, Mae Whitman, Katara, Zach Taylor Eisen, Aang, Jack DeSanta, Sokka, Michaela Jill Murphy, Toph, Jenny Kwan, Suki, Dante Bosco, Zuko, and D. Bradley Baker, Appa, series composer Jeremy Zuckerman, and creators Brian Konizik. Again, I'm terrible with names.
I was terrified for a second they weren't going to have Dante Bosco on the panel, and that would have resulted in me wanting to burn things rather appropriately for a fan of Zuzu.
Kanentisoku, I think. Sorry. And Michael Dante DiMartino. Seven Havens isn't the only Avatar project coming up. There's also the feature film The Legend of Aang, The Last Avatar, which is coming to theaters on October 9th, 2026. The cast includes Eric Nam as Aang, Jessica Madden as Katara, Roman Zaragoza as Sokka, Dion Kwan as Toph, plus Stephen Ewan and Dave Bautista as the mysterious villain.
Stephen Ewan is playing a villain? That's weird.
He can do it. I don't think you've looked into like his filmography actually.
No, I'm not saying he can, I'm not saying he can't do it. I just think that's a little weird that Stephen Ewan is playing a villain. It's hard for me to picture him playing a villain because I'm so used to, the avatar of wholesomeness that is Mark.
How long has it been since you've watched Invincible?
It's been a minute. I know later in the story he gets a little bit more Viltrumite-ish, but I like him best when he's wholesome and cute. And
Don, I'm sorry. You are watch more of Stephen Ewan's filmography. He plays a lot of like asshole characters. 2. I don't know where the fuck you're getting anything about Mark being wholesome.
You don't think he is? I think
I think he
I've
was
always,
like,
I've always, I think you were the one who actually made this parallel when we first reacted to the trailer all those years ago. He's basically, basically what would happen if Peter Parker was also Superboy.
Superman.
But yeah, I find Mark to be extremely cute. So yes, make your thirsty jokes, damn it, go for it. You know you want to.
Bitch, you know what you are.
I do. But I also know how much you like razzing me about it. So there.
I am too sick to try anything right now.
That is probably the most worrying thing you've said all night. When it's kind of like when we were discussing the Superman movie, and you were like, it didn't inspire me to do anything writing wise, and I was like, good God, are you all right? Like that is that kind of thing, because I know two things for absolutely certain. You can make an idea out of anything, and you will never allow me to live down any of my various idiosyncrasies without razzing me for them. So, are you sure you're not dying right now? Because now I'm worried. If you do any other out of character things while you're sick, I'm going to genuinely be worried for you.
Dude, I'm just tired.
Yeah, moving on.
Yeah, okay, so this is also from Variety.com. Dawn said this one. Sinners and Superman are hits, but superheroes and horror movies are no longer box office guarantees. Written by Rebecca Rubin, published July 3rd, 2025.
I actually don't know to what degree I would call Superman a hit, because while it is overperforming massively in the domestic market, it it didn't crack 100 million overseas in its opening weekend, and that almost never happens
Well, you
for
know
a
what?
blockbuster.
Overseas can go fuck themselves. I don't
Well,
give a shit.
that's his maybe, but as a result of that, there's a distinct possibility it won't reach 600 million.
Okay.
So I'm not sure to what degree you can call that a hit, considering just on basic like impulse, you'd think it would have to make at least more money on paper than Man of Steel did, considering that Man of Steel made 670 in 2013 money, and everyone freaked the fuck out. Whereas there's a distinct possibility that Superman 2025 will make less than that in 2025 money after 12 years of inflation, and that would make Warner Brothers shit themselves with terror, I think, if that ends up happening.
All right. It wasn't so long ago that audiences would show up to seemingly any movie featuring a costumed hero or a masked killer, but times and standards have changed, and lately Hollywood's two most reliable genres, superheroes and horror, are showing signs of fatigue. Okay, that's not true. It's a sign of, well, it's fatigue, but quality fatigue, not the genre itself.
Yeah, the genre isn't the problem. The fact that people recently assumed that we can make any superhero movie and it will just automatically make bank, no matter how half baked and shit the concept of the movie we make is. That's the biggest problem. And I would argue that some of the recent bombs have nothing to do whatsoever with the quality of the movie, and everything to do with Warner Brothers shooting themselves in the foot. Because had they waited to announce James Gunn's DCU until after Black Adam, Shazam 2, Aquaman 2, and Blue Beetle had come out, I think probably all of those would have done decent numbers. Or at least more decent numbers than they did. Whereas because Warner Brothers decided to basically just let the entire like post Snyderverse DCEU burn, Black Adam bombed when I genuinely think that movie deserved to make a bunch of fucking money, and Blue Beetle did too. I'm not super upset about Aquaman 2 not making a whole bunch of money, and The Flash deserved to bomb regardless of whatever else the other movies were doing, but at least a few of those could have made money if they didn't make it very, very public knowledge that nothing in the DCEU matters anymore because James Gunn's rebooting the whole thing. Moving on.
Okay. Sorry. Uh, People haven't stopped loving horror superhero films, but they stopped loving mediocre entries in those worlds, says exhibitor Mike Barstow, VP of Midwest-based ACX Cinemas. There's a demand for higher quality. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that is the objective. Which, to be fair, for a while, no matter how good or bad a superhero movie was, it made bank. But now that the genre is definitely well established, you need to do what all the other genres do after their like day in the sun or their grace period is over, which is now that we know this genre can exist and is consistently a thing, you actually have to try, and if you don't try, then fuck you. Just like with every other genre. And the same thing even more so goes for horror, because horror has been kind of the dregs of Hollywood for the longest time. There's a reason why like 3 bad horror movies get released in like January alone most years. The reason why genres that are already well established need to try harder than genres that are still risky is because genres that are already established are demanded to, okay, we believe that this genre can be a thing, now do something with it. And I don't even know why you're throwing horror into the mix here, because horror is one of Hollywood's oldest genres, and as a result, the shitty ones bombing is nothing new. Any more than the good ones succeeding is anything new. Moving on.
Analysts believe there are different reasons behind the wear and tear of each. Yet both types of fare appear to have reached the oversaturation point.
Again, horror reached the saturation point sometime in the 80s. I don't know where you guys have been, but above the rock you appear to have been living under. Horror movies hit their saturation point in the 1980s with things like Clive Barker and John Carpenter and so on. Wes Craven, that's the other one. The third one I couldn't think of was Wes Craven. But yeah, the saturation of the horror movie market happened like early 80s. I don't know where you guys have been, but you appear to have been under a rock for the last 4 decades at least. And that's not even considering things like Hammer Horror and the Universal Movie Monsters independently also reaching their saturation point sometime in the like 50s. Moving on.
All right. All right. That's not to say that movies in either genre can't or won't break through. Sinners, $365 million. Superman, $426 million to date. And Final Destination Bloodlines, $285 million are recent triumphs, but they are no longer box office guarantees.
Well, no, because when a genre is new and untested, it is it feels more fresh to people, and B, people are willing to be more charitable with it because the genre is new and they have to get their footing. But once a genre becomes established, people's standards for them go up. And that appears to be what happened with, again, horror many decades ago and superhero movies most recently. I'm not surprised that modern superhero movies aren't making as much money as previous eras in the genre did, because the current norm for the genre is rather shit. I wish it weren't. I desperately wish we could get good superhero movies every single time, but unfortunately, we live in the world of is rather than shoulds, and yeah, the genre has been circling the drain for a while now, not because it has any sort of expiration date, but because people are no longer willing to cheer on a superhero movie just because it's a superhero movie. We've established that superhero movies are just as credible as every other genre of movie, so now it needs to be held to the standards of every other genre of movie. Moving on.
All right. Okay. Hollywood takes the less risk-averse approach and makes what has worked until they have exhausted it, as Kevin Goetz, founder and CEO of audience research firm Screen Engine/ASI. Suddenly, there's a new horror film every week, and superhero movies got into a complacency.
Yeah, but again, I'm not sure why you're throwing horror here, because the horror genre reached its saturation point years ago, and that's why almost every horror fan knows don't go to see horror movies in January, because they will more than likely be shit. Because movie studios tend to leave the movies they're ashamed of or they're not proud of in January, because that's when people are essentially out of money due to the holidays, and so it's understandable that movies set in January will underperform, and that's why many studios turn January into a dumping ground for the movies they're basically willing to let die. Moving on.
All right. Horror has long been a big screen draw because jump scares are more fun in communal settings. Back when virtually nothing was reviving the box office post COVID, Quiet Place Part 2, Halloween Kills, and The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It rarely bring out hits fueled by younger moviegoers. And scary movies are usually safe bets because they often carry low budgets and don't require as much to turn a profit. Then there's endless upside when these films catch fire.
Yeah, but again, that happened years ago. That's not even a unique to COVID thing. The horror movies have been kind of the whipping boy of genre content for like probably the longest time, because they were one of the earliest genre types to peak in Hollywood. Like back during the early years of the talkies, like horror movies were the go-to movie type. The only thing that outstripped horror movies in that period might have been the noir, and given how noir detective stuff kind of burned itself out, I think horror got the last laugh, because now, like, and I know this because I explicitly went looking for urban fantasy noirs or supernatural and occult noirs, and I only came up with about 20 movies. And I basically searched through the entire history of the concept of combining urban fantasy / supernatural / occult noir together, and I came up with only about 20 movies that I hadn't seen or owned yet. And even then, like 5 of those were ones that I already planned to get my hands on at some point. In terms of unknown urban fantasy noirs, I wound up with about 17 that I hadn't heard of at that point. But anyway, you brainstormer can entertain the audience for a bit, because I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay. Okay, this is Shibuya Arc song by Fable and Dizzy 8. Yeah, I've been living with the devil up inside my head, and now I think it's showing. Because if God's given all his hardest battles to the strongest, then I must be blind. Uh, Fire Spitter hit him. Something like Jogo putting a hit on my head. That's a no-no. Look at my neck and my wrists. I could take your whole fucking team on solo. I've never knew what this city meant to me till I was watching it burn. Now I must settle the score, bitch. I won't sit around waiting my turn. King of the curses, put them in urns. Yeah, I don't think that I could ever return, but I was always a man of my word. I'm gonna end it. They're gonna learn. You know, threw the crown at me, and ever since this pain's been a noun to me. Green grass is nothing but a fallacy. Another channel for the everyday crowd to see. Yeah, my only reality ends in fatalities. Told me you're proud of me. Get this shit out of me. Cause all this power I thought that I conjured turned me straight into a monster. I hear demons calling, singing to me in the dark. They're telling me I'm crawling close to the edge, so jump now. There's no fear of falling when the devil's in your heart. No more need for stalling, give in to the hate and play your part. I'm losing my mind, I'm losing my people, they losing their lives. I used to have vision, I'm losing my eyes. The darker my days, the more I go blind. I'm blinded by pain, blinded by hate, blinded by shame, I'm losing my faith. I'm going insane, but through my insanity, feel like the man in me broke from his cage. And that's when it changed. They want the demon in him free, then his whole demeanor switching. Killing everybody, I don't see a difference. I'll be the one to make a villain a victim. Was stuck in the prison of feeling like I was a monster. I think it's time I embraced it. He got what he wanted. Don't be afraid when I slowly walk up to erase him. Look at my eyes for a minute. You'll find that my light start dimming and my heart augmented. The beast been unleashed. I don't care if there's blood on my hands, if at least I know yours what I'm spilling. Return the feeling of fear, and it's chilling the calm in the spirit. Committed in pain back all the pain that was given to who I hold dearest. Don't care if what don't care if that means I turn into a menace, because right now I hear demons calling, singing to me in the dark. They're telling me I'm crawling close to the edge, so jump now. There's no fear of falling when the devil's in your heart. No more need for stalling. Give in to the hate and play your part. I've been beaten and I've been broken. A new me's been awoken. I used to feel like I was chosen. Now I couldn't tell you where the hope went. Never be the same. It get wicked when you really in the rain. Only thing I feel is venom in my veins. All I feel is rage. When you feel afraid, I don't feel a thing. And I've been so afraid of my own damn thoughts, I finally know the cost. I hear demons calling, singing to me in the dark. They're telling me I'm crawling close to the edge, so jump now. There's no fear of falling when the devil's in your heart. No more need for stalling. Give in to the hate and play your part. Sorry. Okay. Now I will be reading Let It Die by Survive, Said the Prophet. Let me get a swig of water first. Okay. Uh, we rise until we fall. Oh no. We'll rise until we fall. We'll rise to take a stand. We'll fight until we fall. We'll rise until we die. Let it die. Let it die. City light flashes lines, passing by the traffic signs that told me where to go, and I where I needed to be. Facing time or being alive, every second counting, down and up our lives as we are in control. So what we fall same time, sometime. Keep the heavy breathing. Can't you feel you need this too? So what we fall sometime. If we don't try, then it will always stay impossible. We'll rise until we fall. We'll rise, take a stand. We'll rise, fight, we fall. We'll rise until we die. These nails we've been pounding on this stable ground gave us foundation to just overcome. If you take control of doubt, you'll find your way back home. A string of hope at the end of the tunnel. Maybe the fuse to set the echo and rumble. Destroy, rebuild, or let it die. Let it die. We'll rise until we fall. We'll rise, take a stand. We'll fight until we fall. We'll rise until we die. We can start this riot, seek our ways amongst this world. We can start this riot, seek our ways amongst this world. We can start this riot, seek our ways amongst the world. We can, yeah, y'all get it. Okay, now I'll be reading Reclaim by Divine Music. I was afraid I lost them all the times I would waste away, calling out their names, but no one came. But I kept waiting, barely holding on. My world's been fading out. The people pay the price to keep them in a vice. I see it day and night. We're just the cause. So you can't tell me what you are. I can see right through. No hiding those scars. I'm not waiting. Underground and city streets are plagued by curses born underneath. The minds that turn to devil's teeth. With cards to cheat under their sleeves, I've watched the rise, I've seen the fall. I've witnessed leaders lose control. I've walked away to search for answers. In the dark, the night grew faster. People pay the price to see them in a vice. I see it every day. We're just the cause, so you can't tell me what you are. I can see right through, no hiding those scars. I'm not waiting. I'll be watching, waiting in the dark. I will strike the fear into their hearts. Not a face to blame, but they will know the name. Let them brought inside a cell with broken bones be the first to cast the final stone. Reclaim what you stained. I'll be watching, waiting in the dark. I will strike the fear into their hearts. Not a face to blame, but they will know the name. Let them brought inside a cell with broken bones be the first to cast the final stone. Reclaim what you've stained, so you can't tell me what you are. I can see right through. No hiding those scars. I'm not waiting. All right.
Okay, I'm back. Give me a second.
Okay. Got through like 3 songs. While you were
Which
gone.
ones? Out of curiosity.
Nothing you would have listened to, mind you. It's like nerdcore stuff.
Ah.
Yeah.
So Weird Al.
No. Modern stuff.
Ah. Anywho, back to your regularly scheduled podcasting of the storm.
Yeah. Okay. As Hollywood has leaned hard into movies about things, Golden Knights, several this year have struggled to stand out. 4 Blumhouse features in a row. Megan 2.0, 37 million. Wolfman 34 million. Woman in the Yard 23 million, and Drop 28 million have bombed. Those most fighters had company. Sony's slasher I Know What You Did last summer, 24 million to date. Warner Brothers sci-fi thriller Companion, 36 million, and A24's nightmarish comedy Death of a Unicorn, $16.4 million, also struck out.
Yeah, most of those movies were not good. The reason why Sinners did gangbusters was because it was so freaking good that everyone wanted to see it. Also, Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan are very hot right now, and especially when working together, the idea of them doing a historical, like almost. To be fair, Sinners was almost kind of up my alley. The aforementioned like urban fantasy slash horror slash noir thing. Sinners kind of fits in with that set there a little bit. I mean, it's not a perfect 1-to-1, but it definitely is going to fit in alongside stuff like Devil's Advocate. Trying to think of some other ones that it looks or feels really a lot like The Believers. It kind of fits in with that one. Kind of fits in with The First Power. All of those that are, the aforementioned, like, I only know of like 17 to 20 of them, but all of those urban fantasy noir / period set stuff it fits in really nicely with Sinners. I think that might also have contributed to it. It's such an interesting genre piece that, like, it's a concept that most people probably haven't heard of unless you are like me and have read all the urban fantasy noir and watched all the urban fantasy noir stuff that you can get your hands on. Which hopefully more people will someday be if Hollywood ever gets off their ass and starts adapting some of these for the screen. And actually adapting them. Looking at you, Sci-Fi Channel, just slapping the name Dresden Files on a thing does not Dresden Files adaptation make. Moving on.
We're seeing a rut where 5 or so consecutive movies have performed within a similar range, says Sean Robbins, Fandango's director of movie analytics. That says there's a dedicated audience, but it's also to take boundary pushing to break past that ceiling. Jason Blum, founder of low-budget horror empire Blumhouse, has a theory about the mixed bag of horror. He believes there's a cap on the number of scary movies that can coexist on multiplex marquees. Right now, there's too much horror in the marketplace, Blum said it on the Town podcast. We're used to a market that can absorb 12 to 15 horror movies where you can get these singles and doubles. I think that's gone.
I don't want to disagree with Jason Blum, because obviously Jason Blum knows horror, but I'm afraid Jason Blum is wrong. The fact that there are a lot of horror movies, as we just went over, isn't a problem, especially because the like budgets of horror movies are quite small and tend to easily make their money back. The issue is most horror movies being made today are kind of shit. So much so that the odd not shit one, like Sinners or like Terrifier or those sorts of movies, ones that actually have some cachet to them, or Robert Eggers' Nosferatu is another really good successful horror movie recently. The good ones tend to stand out, unfortunately, because the other ones are kind of shit. And the same is true of the superhero genre. Like, unfortunately, the good ones, or even the vaguely competent ones, like Superman and Thunderbolts, look better by comparison because so many movies turn out to be the Marvels or an Eternals, or even a just kind of generically bad one like Cap 4. When all the other movies in the genre are shit, the good ones stand out more. Unfortunately, a lot of times in those circumstances, good movies get buried because people have been burned by bad superhero movies or bad horror movies so many times that they honestly don't believe people when they tell them, no, this one is actually really, really good, unless the people behind it have an already established reputation, like James Gunn or like Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, or if they're so unique looking that they stand out from the crowd enough that people can see the obvious goodness on the screen. Moving on.
When horror has captured the zeitgeist as Sinners and last year's Long Legs won 27 million, those films generate the kind of word of mouth that turned them into must-see theatrical events. Sorry. Upon releases such as Zach Krieger's Weapons and Jordan Peele produced him and Blumhouse's Black Phone 2, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 need to spark something similar to disrupt the genre's holding pattern.
No, they need to demonstrate to the audience that they're good, or at least, if not good, a worthwhile theatrical experience. Because here's the other thing. Being in a movie theater in modern days suck, especially given how we have so many other options for entertainment. Even if worse comes to worse, we still have YouTube and like Twitch and things like that. But even among like mainstream studio content, you can watch a 2-hour movie for the same price as an entire month's worth of a subscription service, and the good stuff on that will run you about 10 hours worth of content for the even if you're not one of those people who religiously watches everything that pops onto Netflix or pops onto Prime or whatever. The good ones, the good shows that will stand out, or the good movies that do stand out, will give you dozens of hours worth of content, whereas the movie theaters frequently are dirty, frequently are miserable, frequently people don't shut off their fucking phones for 5
I have
minutes.
no idea what movie theater you're going to. I've never had that problem.
Well, you're lucky then. But yeah, a lot of movie theaters and theater going is insufferable, especially because if you can get better and frequently longer content on a streaming service, you're better off paying for the monthly subscription of a streaming service than you are going to the movies every week or every month or whatever the fuck. And especially given that so many movies are shit now, if you decide you want to see a movie in a theater and that movie turns out to be shit, then you've blown $40 when all is said and done.
Oh no, like 60 or 70.
Yeah, on a movie that was shit or pissed you off or put you to sleep or any number of other things that bad movies can do. And the awesomeness and nirvana nature of movie theater popcorn aside, which almost make going to the theater worth it just for that. The awesomeness of movie theater popcorn aside, if you spend $60 on a movie and that movie turns out to be shit or actively makes you angry, then whoops, you just spent $60 on something that pissed you off. You should have just stuck with a Netflix subscription or a Prime subscription or whatever the fuck. Moving on.
God, you were bitter.
Yes, I am. Fuck off.
Sinners was so successful because it was original and different, says Alan McCann, owner of Oakland's Grand Lake Theater. It wasn't just a horror film. There was so much more there.
That does explain why Sinners did so well. It was very, very good, and it did interesting things that, apart from the 20 movies that I went out of my way to look up, most people haven't seen that kind of combination of period piece plus genre plus like urban fantasy or supernatural horror combined, like Sinners did. That's one of the reasons why it stood out so well. Not just because it already had kind of a pedigree because of Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, but also because the trailers themselves looked awesome, and the word of mouth on it was freaking amazing because that movie was good. And really, really good at that. Moving on.
All right. Superhero exhaustion began to set in post-COVID as viewers were inundated with an influx of interconnected TV shows in addition to big screen releases.
No.
Hold on. For a decade prior to the pandemic, Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe in particular could basically spotlight any hero and expect a blockbuster smash hit in return. Yet, Captain America Brave New World, 415 million against 180 million budget, and Thunderbolts, 382 million against a 180 million budget, are just proof that Marvel isn't too big to fail after all.
The only reason why the surplus of Marvel content was a bad thing wasn't because of the interconnectivity, wasn't because of homework. It was because many of the projects that Marvel did for TV were shit. There's only one good episode of WandaVision. There are 0 good episodes of She-Hulk, essentially. Same thing with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and so on and so on and so forth. The reason why the MCU expanding out to TV negatively impacted the MCU was not because people don't want that level of interconnectivity. It's because they gave stuff like season 1 of Loki and WandaVision a shot, and a lot of people came away from it going, "What in the fuck did I just watch? That was shit." People have a slightly more positive opinion of Loki than they do of WandaVision, but they do have a very, very negative opinion of WandaVision for the most part. I will go so far as to say there's only one good episode in the entire goddamn show, and then the episode that followed that one and only good episode did its best to basically make everything in that episode not matter, which is another bad trend that the MCU got into. Taking a story that could have been told in an hour and a half and spacing it out to 8 hours, and then not only are they spacing out an hour and a half worth of story into 8 hours of show, they go out of their way at the end usually, or near the end, or sometimes even near the middle, to undo half of the storytelling they just did in that 1.5 hours of storytelling spread into 8 hours of TV. There are exceptions, but unfortunately, because they got burned by WandaVision and Loki and She-Hulk and Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Secret Invasion and on and on and on and on the list goes, because they got burned with stuff that they expected to be decent, or at least, good to decent, they weren't willing to believe people when they said things like Daredevil Born Again was pretty damn good. Agatha All Along was pretty damn good. Werewolf by Night is possibly the best thing released after Phase 3 full stop. And so on and so on and so forth. And the same thing happened with the movies. The reason why the MCU was popular back in the day was because even its worst contributions to the genre before Phase 3 were at least all right, and there were very few movies that were actively shit. Whereas now, 2 out of 3 of the movies that Marvel releases at any given time are absolute shit, and the one movie that is quote unquote good is only just sort of good. And that's a bit of a problem. It's the same reason why Batman vs. Superman made 800 plus million at the box office, but stuff like Black Adam and and Shazam 2 and so on ended up making, I think, less than 300 apiece. It's because when you had people's attention and people's desire to go see superhero movies, you abused that attention by making them subject themselves to shit. And after the third or fourth shit movie in a row, people are like, fuck this, I'm not going to show up again unless you really go out of your way to give me a reason to. Moving on.
Superhero exhaustion. There are only so many new stories to be told, and audiences seem to be tiring of the monotony.
Yeah, the monotony is the problem. It's not the genre. It's not an oversaturation of a market. It's a misuse of your resources and a misuse and an abuse of that market. The market didn't become oversaturated. The market was taken for granted, and people don't like being taken for granted, especially not when it subjects them to shit. Moving on.
Alright. These Marvel movies are too much of the same. They always seem to degenerate into 15 or 20-minute fight sequences at the end. My wife, McCann says, my wife and I love movies, and sometimes we leave when the action scenes start because we know how it's going to end.
Okay, you are a weird motherfucker if you're leaving during action scenes. I think that might just be a you problem, sir. Who the fuck leaves during action scenes? Granted, there's such a thing as a bad action scene, but there again, we have the problem. In the old days, the action scenes in your average Marvel movie were pretty freaking good. Now, they basically are almost an afterthought. And that's why people don't like them. Not because of oversaturation, not because of genre fatigue, but because when the standard for any given genre becomes shit, people are less willing to be charitable. And when people are less willing to be charitable, especially when the economy is kind of in a shithole, people are less risky with their money. They're more risk averse. And when they're more risk averse, they save their money until someone they trust tells them whether or not a given thing is good or not. And then, by that point, they're probably going to think to themselves, I'll check it out when it hits streaming, or I'll check it out when it hits pay-per-view or something. I'm not spending $70 to see something that might be good or might be an unspeakable travesty. Moving on. Not to mention, a lot of people nowadays especially are thinking, why in the fuck would I leave my house when an option exists where I don't have to? Because again, being in public in 2025 is kind of a shit deal. So people tend to avoid it. Especially because gas money is a problem in and of itself. Moving on.
He believes New Superman is resonating because the story feels different than other DC films. It was outside of the mold of these usual action movies, McCann says. He was vulnerable and lost fights, which we haven't seen before.
Oh, fuck off. Entire fuck off, because no, if anything, that is the most overplayed and overdone trope in Superman media, is finding some reason to depower him, because you just can't be arsed to write the character as the character. You have to find a way to nerf them so that you can tell a less like a story that involves less effort and less time and less thinking, because you think the only solution to writing a character who's too powerful, quote unquote, is not, I as the writer need to try fucking harder. It's, okay, we need to remove some of the powers. Fuck off.
Well, his powers weren't removed.
Right, but you know exactly what I'm getting at. It's why every Superman movie has a stupid over reliance on kryptonite. Which, to be fair, one of the many one of the few things that Zack Snyder's Man of Steel did do right, there wasn't a hell of a lot of emphasis on kryptonite. So, I mean, you fucked over basically everything else about the character, Zack, but thank you for at least getting some degree of the power scaling right, and thank you for not insta-nerfing him with kryptonite like everybody else does. Yeah, but don't tell me that Superman being vulnerable is new. It is so much of a pre-established obsession writers have with him and certain members of the fandom have with him that it's almost become a cliche in and of itself. Fuck off. Moving on.
All right. In the case of Marvel, the mandate is to do less at a high caliber. We produced 50 hours of stories between 2007 and 2019. Marvel boss Kevin Feige recently told reporters, since 2019's Avengers Endgame, there's been well over 100 hours of stories in half the time. That's too much.
It's not an amount issue. It's a quality issue. If every single one of those 100 hours were cinematic gold, you wouldn't be in this mess. It's because you thought that you were too big to fail and that you were Teflon and nothing could ever stick to you, and you can put whatever shit in front of the plebs and they'll just take it. That's the attitude problem. It's not a problem even necessarily with the content you're making. It's an issue of, are you putting in the necessary effort to make this piece of media good on its own terms? Or are you just rubber stamping it with the superhero genre tag and the Marvel branding and expecting that literally anything goes? Because that's not how that works. Moving on.
All right. After Fantastic Four First Steps on July 24th, I'm going to see that tomorrow, by the way. So you guys will be getting the review next week.
Yeah. I will, of course, be eventually seeing the present that Disney left me this year, because its technical release date is the 25th, which is today. So technically, Fantastic Four is a birthday present for me. I will reserve the right to be harsh upon that on that basis, but yes, technically, Marvel decided to give me Fantastic Four for my birthday. I would have preferred an actual version of Doom, but, que sera, sera. We can't have everything. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you might find you get what you need. Sorry. The old Mick Jagger reference.
Marvel has 2 films in 2026, Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day, and one in 2027, sorry. Avengers Secret War. Those should be slam dunks because they feature some of the most recognizable heroes. After all, only the Marvel and DC entries led by heavy hitters have achieved massive theatrical success post-pandemic.
It doesn't matter how many characters you stuff into the cast. It matters what you fucking do with them, you cunts. Just having people stand around and existing next to each other is not enough to make a movie successful. You actually have to do something with them, which is one of my biggest problems with Endgame. People like to say that this problem started after Endgame, but no, fuck you. It started after Infinity War, because after Infinity War, we got Captain Marvel, which was shit, and we got Endgame, which was also shit. I don't care how much hype was built around it. The movie itself is not good. And most of the positive regard people have for Endgame actually belongs to Infinity War. But because Infinity War actually did the job it was supposed to do. It's Endgame's fault for not being able to cash the checks written by Infinity War. Moving on.
Okay. Those include 2024's Deadpool and Wolverine, 1.34 billion. 2022's Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, 956 million. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, 859 million. And the Batman, 777 million. And 2021's Spider-Man: No Way Home, 1.9 billion.
People always say that Multiverse of Madness like underperformed, but it like made more than 300 million more than the first movie in its franchise did. It's one of the only Phase 4 movies that actually went up from its original, because even Guardians 3 made less than Guardians 2, and I think so did Love and Thunder. Love and Thunder made like 100 million or so, like 150 million less than Ragnarok. And Ant-Man Quantumania was the lowest franchise earner for the entire Ant-Man trilogy. So I wish they would like emphasize Doctor Strange more, given that his movie or movies he was in, like No Way Home, in which he was a major supporting cast member, and the like mechanical impetus for the plot, are the only ones that really went up. The only exception is Deadpool and Wolverine, but that's because Deadpool and Wolverine was successful mostly because Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is just genius, and because it was a love letter to the Fox X-Men movies, and people have a lot of nostalgia around those. Granted, I don't really want them to announce a Doctor Strange 3 anytime soon, because I am terrified they will take the wrong lessons from Multiverse of Madness and ruin the franchise. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope they wait until like 2030 or something to give us Doctor Strange 3, but I'm terrified because I heard a rumor that they're gonna announce Doctor Strange 3 at Comic-Con this year. Please, for the love of fuck, no. I don't want to see my favorite character go from being in a decent, mediocre to bad movie to an actually really good movie with a lot of writing issues to a worse than I can possibly imagine movie. Please don't do that, Marvel. Please wait until 2030 when James Cameron's Avatar franchise will be done and you'll have more VFX toys to play with, and they might even be starting to work AI into movie making. Please. I want at least one Doctor Strange movie where he's not bound to either Earth or an Earth-like planet. Put him in another dimension and keep him there, for fuck's sake.
Meanwhile, DC's mission includes earning back the confidence of fans after the studio's last iteration of superhero adventures combusted with epic misfires such as The Flash and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I haven't. Okay. I think grouping those two together is really stupid.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, at least some of that problem was self-sabotage. Because if they had waited to announce James Gunn's take on things until after whichever one was the most recent one, I think Blue Beetle. Until after Blue Beetle, I think at least 2 or 3 of those movies could have done well. I don't think there would have been any hope for The Flash regardless, but I do think that Black Adam, Shazam 2, Aquaman 2, and Blue Beetle could have been successful if DC hadn't shot themselves in the foot, because Warner Brothers are their own worst enemy when it comes to DC content. Moving on.
All right. Although Superman has been a step in the right direction, DC has challenges ahead because the next two installments, 2026's Supergirl and Clayface, are anchored by lesser known protagonists. Clayface, I could see. Granted, that's for Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
Supergirl, I think, could work.
My issue is based on what we got of her in Superman. It's going to be kind of hard to make her the central character of a thing. Also, I still maintain that it would have made more sense to save Supergirl for towards the end of Clark's first trilogy rather than immediately introducing her right after Clark showed up for the first time in the new universe. Oh, booyah. Oh.
All right. Superheroes are still giant movies, says analyst David A. Gross of franchise entertainment research, but audience interest falls off beyond the most established and popular characters.
No, it didn't used to be that way. If you make enough good movies and you can pretty much guarantee the audience that what they watch is at least going to be all right, if not good, then you can. Like, people forget just how obscure Iron Man was in 2008, or how obscure Captain America was in 2011, or how obscure Thor was in. I want to say that was also 2011. But yeah, it's not the obscureness or lack thereof of the character. It's, are you communicating to the audience why this character's cool and why they should give a fuck? If you're not communicating to the audience why this character's cool and why they should give a fuck, then they're not going to give a fuck. You actually, this basically just boils down to a very simple thing. You have to try in order to succeed now a lot more than you used to have to, because it used to be that superhero movies had a relatively good reputation and people were willing to overlook the stumbles because it was a new genre and the genre was just finding its footing. Neither of those two things are true now because the superhero genre has self-sabotaged itself and the genre is established enough now that people are less charitable. As a result, you actually have to try if you want to succeed instead of just auto succeeding like you used to kind of be able to. Moving on.
So I'm gonna be fully honest on.
You need to call it relatively soon because you're dying.
Well, that and I'm just like I think I'm on the verge of like falling asleep on
Collapsing.
stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, when I do any of it, to be fair, I feel like next week's going to be kind of a little bit of a trailer week just because of Comic-Con and stuff.
Yeah, that's also probably true.
All right. So with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avideze, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom and fuck off.
bye, guys.
Cheers.